Well, good morning, everybody. It's Tom Christie. Welcome back to my carving shop. This will be session four of creating a Drake Wigeon gunning decoy. So we've got the bird hollowed out, put back together. Today we'll finish the neck joint. I want to deal with this seam around the body, make sure that's hidden so it doesn't show up in the painting process. And we've got the keel made. I've been sealing that up, and I seal it with Deft, about 5 coats of Deft, so it's good and watertight. Hopefully we'll get that tied on, get the bird sealed today, and do a test float to make sure it's ready to go. If you're enjoying the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and it does help me out as I continue to provide resources. My goal is to encourage new and old people to get involved in carving, because there's something very soul satisfying to me to make something with your hands, to be a craftsman, and to have something to show for your efforts of your hobby or whatever when you're done with your time. And this is something that you can pass on to other people or just enjoy hunting with, or there are lots of different ways of enjoying decoys. I also collect some decoys, and I just enjoy having other people's work and admire that as well. So let's get going on this Drake Wigeon. Okay, I've got the speed at 2 times, and I'm using this teardrop shape burr and just very lightly going over this body filler. Just taking off the high spots and not trying to dig in too deep. As a matter of fact, just trying to feather it into the surrounding area. And the burr does a pretty good job of doing that without loading up, whereas a ruby bit probably load up with the body filler right away. So I'm just hitting the surface here, and I'll just show you a piece of that, but I'm going to basically do that around the entire perimeter of the neck and get that body filler smoothed out. Once I have the rough stuff done, I'm just going to hand sand the joint, and I'm pretty happy with the way this is shaping up. This is 80 grit sandpaper, but it's kind of an old roll of paper, so it's not real aggressive. And I'm just using it to feather out that neck joint. Next, I'm going to use this 3/4 inch bullet nosed burr, and it's been used for this purpose. It's kind of loaded up with epoxy. This 5-minute DevCon epoxy will load up your burrs, so I just keep this old burr strictly for this purpose, and I'm just removing the surface epoxy that's left over from gluing the halves together, and just taking that down to the wood again. I'll speed this up. Once again, like the neck joint, I'm just going around the entire joint and taking off the excess glue, getting ready for covering that joint up. And then, of course, sandpaper. So I want to rough this area up, so I'm going to put a little feathered body filler over that joint to totally hide it. And I want it nice and smooth before we do that. All right, I've got that seam sanded down. Now I'm just taking a little acetone and cleaning off the seam to get rid of loose material and to promote bonding. And then we're going to use a little skim coat of body filler over that seam just to make sure it's totally hidden. Okay, I've got that mixed up, and I'm just going to put a light coat right over that seam. using a relatively small piece of plastic to just target that seam area. And then we can come back with a little larger plastic piece to feather things out if needed. So I'm going to work fast on this since it sets up quickly, and then come back and show you what it looks like. Just a quick look at that after that skim coat is applied all the way around on that seam. So we'll have a little bit of sanding to do to finish that off. I use a teardrop shaped burr again and do the same thing I did on the neck joint. Just lightly go over that body filler, take off the rough spots. Try not to remove too much because we don't want to get down to the joint that we're trying to hide again between the body halves. And I'm off screen here, but basically doing the same thing I did on the neck, feathering that out. And I just find it goes a lot faster with a burr like this. You can see the way I'm using the burr kind of in one direction, and that's because it's less aggressive in that direction, so it's not digging in as much. So I'll do that and then sand that down. Once I have that all smoothed out, I'm just using my belt sander to take off any roughness on the bottom of the Decoy. And this is pretty quick work for a belt sander. But you can see I'm just rocking it back and forth, trying to get a nice smooth surface down there. I've got a little spot left, and that looks good. All right, I've got the bottom smoothed out, and we'll get that branded, but I want to strike a water line around the Decoy with this little fixture. That way I know exactly, per the pattern, where the water line should be all the way around the Decoy so that it's floating level front to back and side to side, which is critical. So we got that marked, and I'll seal that in place, and then when we do the flotation test, we know where the Decoy is supposed to float, and we can move the weight accordingly. Let's get this guy branded. Got the Decoy branded, and I want to give it about 4 or 5 coats of Deft semi-gloss is what I use, just to seal up the wood in preparation for painting. So I'll coat the Decoy like that 4 or 5 times, let it dry between coats, and then we'll be ready. All right, I've got the bird all sealed up now, and I taped on the keel, got the keel sealed as well. And I'm gonna start with 4 ounces of lead close to the front of the keel. Since this is a marsh duck, normally you need weight closer to the front. And we'll see how this floats. I don't want to put too much weight in, just enough to get it to roll over and provide some stability. All right, let's see how this guy floats. Pretty level in the water. Pretty stable. I'm going to try with just 2 ounces of lead and see if I can get it to flip over. All right, I've got 2 ounces on. I also scooted that back a little bit because it was a little heavy in the front. Okay, it does turn over. And right on the line, both sides. That's great. You know, I think I like the 2 ounces better in terms of settling quick. I think I'm going to go with that. All right, I know where the keel goes because of my keel screws, and I've marked the position of the lead. So now I just need to embed that lead in the keel as low as possible inside. All right, I've got my drill stop set so that I won't punch through the bottom of the keel. And I'm just going to drill out this pocket. Now I've got some 2-part epoxy, and I'm just going to glue those weights into place so they're not rattling around. Kind of coat the inside of the pocket as well. And then I've got a Tupelo plug that I just band-sawed out the correct dimensions, and I'm just gonna fill the rest of the gap with that. And then kind of use the remaining epoxy to seal the top of that plug in place, so no water's getting down into the keel itself. Just using some Lexel elastic sealant on the threads of the keel screws, and I put a little around the opening to the Decoy body so that when I drive these home, some of that squeezes around the screw hole. Tighten those up good. Good. And then normally there's a little sealant that comes out the edge here, and that just tells me that we got a good amount of sealant around the screw holes. So I just use a piece of paper towel to wipe those off. Make sure these are good and tight. They are. All right, there we go. Keel mounted, test floated, ready to prime. I've got the bottom of the Decoy masked off because I want to keep it the natural wood, and then I'm using a gray primer to go over the sealer coats and give us a good foundation for the painting to follow. Making sure I've got good coverage. Looking good. Just a quick look at the primed bird. And let that dry, and then we can move into painting. All right, everybody, that's a wrap on carving the gunning Drake Wigeon. We've taken it from a block of Tupelo to this hollowed out form that's primed and ready to be painted. So in the next sessions, I'll start a series on painting this bird, probably break it into 2 or 3 sessions. It'll be a simple, functional paint job, but also conveys the essence of the species from a distance. That's the goal anyway. We'll give it a shot. I hope this has been helpful. Keep carving, start carving, have fun out there. This is Tom Christie signing out. Talk to you next time.